So our first speaker, Fran, please join me on the stage. And she will tell us a story about how they moved at Cognism, moved from lead gen to demand gen, and how they doubled down on building a media machine and rethinking attribution. Fran, stoked you're here.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna get out of the way. The stage is yours for the next 20 minutes, and I'll pop back in for some Q&A after.
Fab. Thank you so much. Hey everyone. So I am just going to share my screen. So you'll have to just give me a moment. So I've put some slides together, hopefully to make this as actionable as possible. I'm not going to read everything that's on the slide, but I'm just going to give you a brief overview of how we've been thinking about demand generation, what it means to us at Cognism. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. I can no longer see the chat. So yeah, please jump on stage if no one can see this, and let me know. Oh, hello. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, you can get the slides later, and I'm glad that you can see them. Great. Okay, so for me, I chose this topic of demand generation is just another buzzword if you aren't adding value. I just want to run through, firstly, kind of like what demand gen is not. And this is, we moved from a lead gen to a demand gen model at Cognism about a year ago, just over a year ago now. And these are our kind of key learnings along the way. So for us, like demand gen is not ungating all of your content and running it on paid social. I guess that's where most people start. It is a good starting point, but it's not exactly the route that you need to be going down. It's not a case of making everything available to everybody and then that's the end of the journey. Again, it's not just churning out blog posts, repurposing them, like putting them on every single channel, and just really focusing on the volume. So for us, we learned pretty quickly it was about demonstrating value for our audience. Turning your content into one video snippet. So like I've seen this before where it's just like one ebook, a couple of snippets, and that's the end of the demand gen activity. And I think this is important to note. We talk about this quite a lot. Distributing the same content on as many channels as possible. So we've been exploring this a lot. I think when I first started thinking about demand gen, there was a pressure that I needed to be on every single channel. Where we have actually seen the most success is doubling down on just a few channels, but doing those channels very well and optimizing our content for those channels. So thinking about LinkedIn, for example, making sure we're optimizing for in-feed consumption versus taking our audience away from the website. And then again, like demand gen is not a set and forget exercise. So this is like a really strong, our CMO Alice talks about this a lot. You know, we don't want to just launch something and then that's it, it's live in the world. We need to be thinking about iterating and improving as we go. So for us, this is the main goal for demand gen. And I guess it's my loose definition, if you like. It's me trying to be as succinct as possible, which doesn't always happen. So our main goal with our demand gen approach is to provide the most value for our audience in places where they actually hang out. And that's what we really want to be focusing on and what we have been focusing on. So I'm going to do a little dive into how to build a media machine. So the whole media idea of a media machine is something that is integral. It's like a core part of our demand gen strategy, and that is what brings the value. And for me, like, it's the most important thing is driving this value and always keeping yourself honest to that. So how have we done this? So I've tried to kind of depict it in a little diagram, but of course, if you have questions, we can do a bit more of a deep dive at the end. So for us, the media machine, the first sort of key thing is knowing your audience. So before we're like producing this content, we need to know our audience inside out. Where do my audience hang out, rather? Customer research and key trends. Not because I'm doing an event with you guys at Winter, but Winter has actually been a key tool that we've started using over the past few months. It's given us like invaluable insights into pain points of our audience, what messaging is resonating with them, and has been another layer to understanding on top of listening to calls and customer and prospect calls. It's been like another layer to like further strengthen really just understanding who we're marketing to. I think the next piece which we've focused on is to build a following. So around this subscriber channels. So we've launched a podcast, YouTube channel, we've launched a series of live events as well for each persona. So we've got cold calling lives for our sales persona, and we have our Demanderism episodes for our marketing persona. So it's really thinking about the personas separately and catering to their pain points. So that's a key sort of part of the machine, is like making sure you have something in place to build that following. And then the thing that I'm going to deep dive into a little bit more now is the relevancy and being value led. As I said at the beginning, for us, like this whole DG approach is very like a real buzzword unless we're actually adding value to our audience. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we actually started to think about content, how we implemented the content creation process, and also a focus for us on utilizing SMEs, which are subject matter experts. So just move on. Content creation process. So at Cognism, we've actually started to redefine the content role specifically. So we're thinking about what it looks like for content and DG to work together and how we can work together in the most efficient way. So what we have actually done with some of the content team now actually sit within the demand gen team. So I manage both DG managers and content as well, and our content and SEO executives. The idea is that, like, for us, the content role isn't just writing blog posts. So if we're going to really truly add value to our audience consistently, the content execs don't just focus on this blog writing, but it's also focusing on producing video snippets, content for like subject matter experts. They think about paid ads, like what copy we're using, what content we're putting out there. And they really just need to have a full understanding of the content formats, the full marketing mix, the demand gen initiatives and agendas, and then to be able to feed that back into the content engine. So it's something like really new for us. It's, you know, having like a content role sit within the DG team, but the results have been amazing so far, just in terms of not only the quality, but how quickly as well it's kind of sped up the process and how quickly we can get things out there and live to our audience. So that's just like a new way of thinking about it. Obviously, we are lucky to have quite a big team, and we were able to make that shift. But I think there are things you can do as well for smaller teams and just aligning that content and demand gen more closely. So that's how we're kind of like rethinking content. And then just to give you a little bit of an insight into the content creation process. So for us, when we were thinking about moving to this demand gen model, we thought a lot about top of funnel content versus bottom of funnel content. We make all content accessible to our full ICP at all times. So we don't serve bottom of funnel content at a certain stage. We know the buyer journey isn't linear. So, you know, our audience gets product content, thought leadership content, social proof content, all at the same time. And that content is always on. So for us, we have identified some key buckets that we want to focus on. So we look at thought leadership content. So for us, thought leadership is like a higher arc. It's topics that resonate with our audience, key themes, trending topics that are further away, I guess, from the product itself. So they don't have to directly align, you know, don't have to directly feed into what Cognism do, as long as they're interesting, they're qualitative, they're relatable, and as I keep mentioning, like really value-led. The content element is actionable content that has a dotted line back into our product. So we look and identify key themes that not only resonate with our persona, but then like these key themes and pain points that Cognism can also solve. And then we have product and social proof categories. So product is bottom of funnel, educating our audience around what we do. And then the social proof is the case studies. So we put out sort of predominantly like ads, just like showcasing our best case studies and best practices around like using Cognism. So there are 4 key pillars, I guess, in the create demand strategy that we have. And then there's just some tips here, but I am going to share the slides afterwards, so I won't go through everything. But this is just a little bit of how we work. We use Asana. We're very closely aligned. If you ever work with me, you'll know I'm super structured. So everything's accounted for and assigned, and that helps us ship things out as quickly as possible. So there's a full process around how we're creating content and thinking about filling each of these content buckets based on what each of them stand for. So just to move on to the subject matter expert piece. So subject matter experts are a key part of the media machine. Again, if you're going to drive value, you want to make sure that the content you're putting out there is relatable to your audience. So for us, one of our personas we market to is the sales persona. So we've engaged with Ryan and Morgan, who are key subject matter experts for us. They drive this authentic value-led content. It speaks to our audience's pain points. It helps us to build up a following. It's a different voice. It's a trusted voice that people know these guys as great sales leaders and sales experts in the space. So it's really helped level up our content, which has been amazing. And there's some benefits there. I'm not going to read them all out, but the engagement compared to previous content, and also like increased reach as well. And just, the way in which it's helped us to build an engaged community has been really invaluable. So again, even if you are just starting out, I think engaging subject matter experts early on really helps to strengthen your content. And then I have put here, just for everyone's information, but how we kind of work with our subject matter experts. So we do run it very much in a structured manner, and we have core KPIs that we want to achieve. So whether it's scaling LinkedIn followers, whether it's receiving a certain amount of engagement. So they're key KPIs that we put in place, again, just to keep us all honest to driving this growth and creating this real value-led content. Again, you guys can read that at your leisure. I won't talk through every one. So that's, I guess, a little bit about how we're thinking about the media machine. It's packed with value. We want to be as relatable as possible. So once we put this in place, I guess it's then the next question is, how do you actually measure this? How do you think about attribution when you're working under this lead gen model? So we've had loads of back and forth, and I'll be honest, we haven't got it right. Well, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but we've gone around the houses a few times, but I'm going to talk you guys through where we're at. So one thing for me, and we talk about this in the team often, is around ditching the conversion mindset. So I'm a marketer of 10 years, and I'm very much used to living in a lead gen world where every week I report on how many leads, the cost per lead, how can we drive that cost per lead down, how can we get those leads to sales quicker. So that's, I really have, up until about a year ago, I've had this really strong conversion mindset, really focusing on the funnel. And I think the big thing that we've had to I've had to accept is that, at the end of the day, instead of, you're not always going to be able to attribute everything. So the big thing I've had to accept is there isn't one report that's going to be your single source of truth. You can't just rely on measuring direct conversion. We know the buyer journey isn't linear. So for example, moving from, I could see a LinkedIn ad, I could visit one of our blogs, it could say in Salesforce that that's where I've converted on a particular sales blog, for example. But if you ask me, how did you hear about Cognism? I could say, I've been listening to your podcast for the past 6 months. Like that information could be like way more valuable than how it's been attributed in your CRM. So it's really just thinking about when you're making the shift, we need to be ditching this conversion mindset and measuring absolutely everything. Stuff that I might have previously said were vanity metrics are actually things that I now look at the most and make decisions on, essentially make decisions based on that data. So there's two main areas that we want to look at. So there's the reach and engagement. So that is literally your platform metrics. So impressions, reach, video views, frequency, qualitative feedback, super important. Time on page, bounce rate, feedback just by email. We get quite a lot of that. And then we can look at conversion, but alongside the engagement. So we'll look at inbound leads, we'll look at anonymous conversions, we'll look at goal completions. And of course, we do still keep ourselves honest to pipeline, but it's important just to look at those in conjunction with each other. So I am not sure how much time I've got left, so I'm going to skip over these. Want to make sure we've got enough time for questions. So I guess there's two more slides. So this is just deep diving into what reach and engagement look like to us and what success looks like. So we run 3 comparisons. So we look at performance over time. So for example, if we're running a campaign via LinkedIn, we'll look at the engagement rate and the click-through rate and the frequency. How are these campaigns performing against our previous benchmarks? How are they performing against existing campaigns? And this gives us a really good idea of when something is starting to dip or diminish, and then we can adapt it or switch it off. So we look at this, we pull all of this data at the moment into Google Data Studio, and we just look at the performance, as I said, over time. I think one thing as well, we need to measure campaigns and measure things against the right metrics. So it's often that for our product ads, for example, on LinkedIn, we measure against the reach objective. So for this reach objective, it's really to optimize the content in feed and get this, really engage people, educate them in feed, not take them away from the site. And I think more often than not, we have ended up in a situation where we've we've been optimizing for reach, but then we've been reporting on click-through rate. So you really need to make sure that what you're reporting on actually mirrors what your objectives are. So that's like one thing that we've had to keep ourselves honest to. And then just final slide on what success looks like for conversions. So we need to be measuring like what we can attribute, but most importantly, measuring what we can't, which seems a bit confusing. But, we want to be able to look at those direct conversions. Obviously, the more the better, which is great. But we don't just want to use this as our North Star metric because we could potentially lead us down the wrong path. So what we actually do is look at general trends as well. We look at our inbounds versus our 6-month average. If these are trending upwards, like we have a sense that like we're doing the right things. So I think for attribution, like it is good to look at like your first and last touch UTMs, your direct conversions, the inbound trend going up or down maybe, but you need to mirror that and use that alongside your engagement metrics as well. So we actually look at both of those things to make these initial decisions. And you're never going to have a clean report that tells you exactly where to go or what to do. So there is a little bit of gut feel in that as well. That's how we're currently thinking about attribution. Again, I'll share this at the end. And I hope I haven't been talking for too long. And have time for any questions if anyone has any.
This was fire. I was pinging my own dimension people like, hey, tuning into this. Shit. Yeah.
I couldn't see the chat at the same time, so I was like, I don't know if I'm going too fast or
there is a way if you like switch your tabs, but you can see, but nobody told you, I guess.
Oh well, no worries. I hope it was helpful.
Anyways, let's talk about dimension. Yeah.
Yes.
So who do you think besides Cognism is doing a really good job with dimension? Like who's your role model?
For us?
Yeah,
for me, well, companies so we love what Gong are doing. Like we think they're doing amazing job, like messaging, the way they address their audience, like tone of voice, like super relatable. Again, like I think they're up next, maybe like metadata. I think really doing some really cool stuff. think in terms of like creating demand, it's just more exciting, right? Like seeing more exciting initiatives coming through. I love Todd from Refine Labs, like all the TikToks that he's making. It's just like, I think there's a lot more engaging content out there, and that's the stuff that piques my interest, and they're the people that I want to learn from, as opposed to just saying download this ebook like on my feed.
Yeah. Oh man, who was excited by downloading the white paper recently? I mean, or ever? I don't know. Okay, so some questions here. Naomi is asking, how do you decide on the benchmarks, or if you use external benchmarks, where do you get them?
Yeah, sure. So we spent a lot of time thinking about this. We used to like ask our partners, like, right, so from LinkedIn we'd say like, oh, what are the benchmarks in our industry, and we kind of like muddled through that data a little bit. Do you know what my best advice would be? Make your own benchmarks, which sounds like really easy to say. It's taken us a while because you can't just do it on a month's worth of data. But what we actually have started to do is take like now we've been doing the DG approach for longer, take our 6-month trends, like, so look across 6 months and benchmark it against like our own 6-month average, because I think every company is different, and even in the same industry, like people work in different ways, people have different audiences, the products are different. So I think you can start to gather the data. If you measure absolutely everything, you can then start to like pick the bits that resonate with you the most, that are giving you the most insight, and then build benchmarks off the back of that. I know it's a bit kind of wishy-washy, but it's been easier for us to build our own as opposed to trying to find them elsewhere, because then we just get caught up in a lot of noise, I think.
Oh, absolutely. After having worked a decade in experimentation, people keep asking me, like, what's a good conversion rate?
Yeah.
I mean, the answer is better than what you had last week.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So there's so many, your traffic sources are different, your pricing is different, your positioning, your category, like the benchmarks are useless. I mean, it's just pornography for the C-level. It's like it might turn you on, but it does nothing for you. So yeah, you use your own benchmarks. All right, next question. Adriana is asking, what do you do when a website has low traffic to generate decent data?
Okay. What do you?
Actually, that's a tough one. Get more traffic. How about that?
I think there's always like stuff to be. I mean, sometimes like our data samples are like pretty small. So when we started doing this, we do it on like qualitative feedback on LinkedIn comments and things. But I think like you build it up over time, but it still can be useful, which is why I say like just gather as much as you can. Yeah, definitely.
That's right.
Like,
when you don't have enough quant data, meaningful sample sizes, you can always do qualitative. You're absolutely right.
Exactly.
Always do qualitative. You can always pay attention to what seems to be resonating on social, like LinkedIn, message testing, qualitative research, things like that. All right. Exactly. Next question. How do you, Carolina is asking, how do you meet pipeline targets, like needing to drive SQLs by a certain quarter?
Yeah. So I suppose like my advice for this is meeting pipeline targets is thinking about what's coming in top of funnel for us. So I guess a good example would be when we used to collect leads from ebooks and from trade shows and events, it would take us 500 leads to get one closed won deal. And when we started to when we split the funnel, so we looked at those content leads. Then when we looked at our inbound demo requests, so people coming to you and saying, I would like a demo with Cognism, it took 25 of those for a closed won deal. So already we could see that the inbound demo requests were converting at a much faster rate down the funnel. So we actually took budget away from lead gen and put it into those high intent demo requests, which incidentally is our demand gen programs, educating our audience. So for us, it's kind of like, that's the way that we've done it. So we've got the leads that have the higher intent that are moving quicker down the funnel, which has then helped us to like meet target. So yeah, and also if someone's coming to you, like they're ready to buy, as opposed to you pushing them through this like artificial funnel. So I hope that like answers the question.
Yeah. Related question about getting those ready to buy leads. Do you measure brand awareness and brand consideration versus your peers? Like, how many consideration sets are you guys in versus others? Do you do that?
Yeah, like we have had like I'll be honest, like I don't know too much. We haven't done it too much. We have had like brand indicate, I think they're called like brand indicator surveys, like versus our competitors. So we have started to look at that. But I guess like for us, like it's all intertwined, like demand, brand awareness. So this whole piece for us is like the create demand piece, which very much aligns with brand awareness. So I'd say like we haven't spent too much time on it, but yeah, I mean, if anyone actually has any advice on that, I'd be interested if anyone else is doing anything.
Okay, I have some advice on that. So basically, the way you typically want to go about it is that you do a market research survey. You survey, a representative panel of category buyers, and you ask them two types of question: unaided recall and aided recall. Unaided recall is you're considering a sales development or like whatever prospecting tool. Which tools come to mind, right? And you're fishing if your tool comes up. Is it getting mentioned? And you track that quarter over quarter or year over year, whatever, and see if you get more, mind share. And then the other one is like, here are 5 companies: HubSpot, Salesforce, Cognism, Stripe. What do they do? And then you see if they hear your name, aided recall, can they describe what you do and what you're for? Right. So, and then you track whether those two things are improving over time. Winter can help you do that also. All right, next question. Let's see. We have one more. Okay, dark funnel. Do you check for ROAS and how if the leads are coming through the dark funnel?
Oh, okay. So yeah. I mean, yeah, we do as much as we can, but obviously we just can't attribute everything. So it's difficult. So again, it's that conversion engagement versus conversion attribution, which we look at. For our create demand, not so much. We still have a piece like we know what is it like between 3 and 5% of our audience are in market to buy. So we do have a program, a capture demand program, because we still want to capture that 5%, right? So that's where we're looking at Google, return on ad spend, direct demo ads. You'll still see that we run those on LinkedIn. It's just scaled down because we know that only a certain percentage of our audience are in market. So we still do those traditional, more traditional approaches for the capture demand piece. Then the create demand, we attribute everything that we can, but we just admit that we don't know where everyone's come from at all times, basically.
Yeah. Awesome, Fran. Thank you so much. My God, you know so much. Cognism is doing so much great stuff. So all these unanswered questions here, like there's a lot. Guys, Fran is a content creator on LinkedIn, aren't we all? And so go follow her, connect with her, send her your questions, and then maybe she'll answer. Thank you. We'll see you around. Thank you so much.